You know, I'm sure I should know, and I should remember, but I
No,
don't.
typical hourly rate for a laborer for the landscape contract, I think, is $28 an hour. So we were able to hire somebody substantially less.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because like, why do we have to have like a landscape professional there?
Because we don't have authority as a board to hire staff members.
So they staff it with one of the landscape people that
Well,
work.
it's just an additional contract labor like we use for random one-off projects. If we don't have a staff member to fill in, then we are completely dependent on the availability of contract staff,
Yeah,
which is always generally a much higher hourly rate than staff member would be.
Interesting. So that's
So I think
something
it
that
was
the board should be addressing, because
conservative
like,
budget to start.
yeah. Because we should have.
What was it listed at, 100 and something?
114 for last year. Hey. Oh, hi. And then, yeah, for next year, then it's saying, so yeah, so the budget for 2017 is 116, but that makes sense because it's budgeting, again, what it
Worst case
expected.
scenario,
So where does that, so obviously then that extra money just rolls over and it goes into the general fund if it's not used, right?
Mhm.
But that makes sense, so yeah, because, but that's an interesting thing, because why doesn't the town, we used to, am I not mistaken, didn't there used to be like an older gentleman?
There was, yeah, Skipper.
Yeah, I couldn't remember his name, yeah. So like the town just didn't want to go that method again?
Nobody wanted to do it. Couldn't find somebody to do
You
it.
kidding?
Well,
I'd quit my job in a
they had
heartbeat and
college
do
student-
that.
We had a college student do it over the summer.
Yeah, it was,
And then
another
when
son.
he went back to school, you know, then
Then we were up a creek
he
again.
tapped the Vargas
Yeah,
employee.
yeah, at contract rate of $28 an hour, so yeah.
But it really doesn't explain. They had a budget of 32.5 for the year. They've spent through September almost 47.
Oh, see, I meant to ask you some questions about this, because you kind of you went over some numbers, and I'm like, they didn't make some sense.
Let's just look at that. That's
Oh, so they spent 114 this past year, and that's
No,
why.
that's what
No,
they
I
think
think that
they're
was
gonna
the,
spend.
that was the estimated
That's their
actual.
estimate at the end of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm
But
not
they've
sure
only
what was
spent
included in that.
47
right.
through September.
But they only budgeted 32,500, and that was based on the fact that it was open less, and now it's open more.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of a wag for
I
last
don't
year's
know how much
budget.
it was really open.
It was open 5 days a week.
It was open substantially more all year.
But it wasn't open up, it was open 3 days a week.
Yeah, when it's not always been open from April to November. So we doubled the time that it was open.
Where did you double it from?
No.
From, it went from April to November to January to January.
For this year?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought.
wasn't aware of that. Is that what you understand it?
Yeah, no, I thought that we expanded it, well, not we.
It was
but yeah.
expanded, Brian, and we've advertised that all year. There's a policy direction from, what, spring-ish? Something like that? So, yeah.
From what?
From around, sometime earlier this year, the board directed staff to extend the hours and keep it open, and it's been in the newsletter monthly ever since. It's been very well publicized through town media.
How much hauling has there been?
A lot more.
No, during those months, was there hauling?
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, people,
Yeah, they
it's been
still
a very
come in, like-
popular.
It still doesn't,
They
it's
bring
still,
it, it's full.
I still don't get it because $47,000 you spent. You had it open year round. But I mean, if you're just putting year to date, $47,000 expended
That was through when, Brian? That was through September?
for September.
Oh, no, it's every week.
In the month of September, which is a pretty healthy month, $6,600. So if you took that number and said, well, we're gonna do that much for the next 3 months, that's maybe 20K, that's generous. So that can get you to maybe $67,000. So I don't understand why it's $114,000.
So, because,
I
Are you
don't
gonna
either.
spend 114 or not?
so the whole reason.
It's not my department, number one. I'm glad to check into it for you, number two.
I'm just asking.
But yeah, I don't,
You're
I'm,
volunteering information. so
I'm
I
sharing with
assume
you
that
what I know,
No,
and
but
and
here's
what I know
what I
is
was
what
trying to
the,
answer to you. So it's because, so it's like you said, so they have to base that total number. So now it's gonna be open year round. And so they have to base that number on assuming that they're gonna pay a contract rate to somebody the whole year, because the town
Well, I can
authorize the
understand.
staff to hire anybody to.
Yeah, I can understand
run
it for
that.
next year, I'm just wondering about this year.
Yeah.
So it's probably high, like you mentioned, Brian, but I'm not sure the other items that are included in that budget. Huh? Like I'm saying, I don't know if there are other items that are included. I don't. It could be it could be site amenities, signage, fence repair. I just really don't know if there are other items included. Is parks?
People sometimes choose. This is actually right now the common story.
Oh, Kim, Ezzy, did you see the email from Kim? She's not going to be able to make it.
Yeah, I saw that.
She was the only one that emailed.
Okay.
Came back here at 2 and he was and now I'm here. Yay!
Don't you love those things?
Yes, I can't go.
I think it's gonna be sarcastic.
This is what's- Did you see?
Yeah, I gave up, like, wait, really, I had rented a couple years.
Because you were a realist.
So I could turn out. I didn't know, it's the danger of being a philosopher, you should.
My first election was, I was really shy of being over the road and one for the government back in 17.
Mhm.
And I thought he was going to win. He won one state.
Oh, no.
I just, rose-colored glasses or whatever is my middle
But
name.
I like
Mhm.
that, I like that. And I think there's some reasons like I was telling my husband, he's not here. So we're talking on the phone about it.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, like, you know,
As of,
Wow, that's crazy.
it was just funny, it's like I told him, I said, I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
How about yourself? Doing well.
Hey.
Yeah.
Like 6 months ago, she had something, no matter what. I can't even explain it. Like in my head, I was like, I think there's something going on. It's almost like when I was starting to it's almost like I'm almost starting to like this.
Right. You can make certain guesses about the people on this board.
Because I am, so I definitely don't agree with that. But
You just kept getting more. They were just like, oh, it's too late, it doesn't matter. That's funny.
I mean, it's weird that it's
Yeah, we got lots to talk about, right?
the worst to me is actually very personal thing, which is
Oh, wow.
So you're victim of
Yeah.
success.
I had a moment thinking about it while I was watching election results come in.
Mine.
Thinking about the next Day of the Union. But just thinking about the next Day of the Union, it's going to be awful. It's going, oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
That doesn't vote in our hand.
I wouldn't do it. I agree with you. I copied you on the stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right, at least having some sort of checks and balances.
Yeah, exactly what they did to us last year.
Yeah. Yep. It's gonna be a lot of 4 years.
partly because I watched it until it was done, and then I was so worked up that I actually ended up watching the movie and was working. I was in Atlanta. Or this is quick.
Oh, well, this deal, oh no, it's really like this.
Yeah, so left till like 12:30 or something, and then realized how late it was. I was like, I go to sleep. Yeah.
The movie was way different. I was gonna just have it be the background, but I actually haven't watched it. But it was silly, but
We've
I
been
mean,
here
God,
for
it was
the Art to Recycle.
Florence Foster Jenkins. It
It got canceled this year. We missed it. Yeah, yeah, that's why.
Really? Okay.
Usually the same day.
I rented it, like, my box just on the whim, and I'm like.
Trying to figure out how many things people dropped off somehow.
The easiest way to explain is that society's broken down, and you have to, like, remember to actually continue your life and plan it. By making it just a very little time, and you can turn it to an issue of choice. So that's, there's a lot more to it.
Not your average thought, but.
So, is there anybody else?
I don't know. We can ask Martin. Martin? Is there anybody else coming?
You know, I don't know.
Okay.
Kim said that she wasn't going to be here, but that leaves what? Colleen and then Joe I didn't hear anything from. So if you want to get started, Ezzy? Ezzy, I don't know if anybody else is going to be here, so you might want to just,
Okay.
just get started.
Is it my job to call everyone to?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Attention.
Excellent.
Okay. Oh, I love that.
I guess I'll call everyone to order. Sweet.
All right. And we can, just like, Martin usually like says something, but then we can just sort of kind of go down the list. So you can say it's open public comment. But I think you're supposed to say it's this meeting, this date, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay. It's, is it the 10th today?
Yeah.
So meeting on November 10th, 2016. Call everyone to order, and I guess we have public comment first. It looks like we actually have some people joining us, so yeah, please feel free to stand up and introduce yourself into the microphone, and
Hi.
yeah, thanks for coming.
Yes, hi, Brian Hill, Kyoto Lane in Rock Creek area. Yeah, I was wondering if the committee would be interested in entertaining any ideas for yard waste facility improvements.
Do you have anything in particular in mind, or?
There's some configuration ideas. I could present it at a future meeting. I'm not on the agenda for this meeting, but I have about a 7-page presentation that I could present to you folks. I could send it in the email.
Sure,
I
yeah,
have
feel
time
free.
if you want.
You can send it to either Martin or myself, and then we can take a look at it. But yeah, we'd definitely love to hear your thoughts and have you in either now or at a future meeting. So.
Yes, and I wanted to just do it in light of the additional budget that, not only operating expense, but capital budget that they've planned for 2017. There's about $20,000 in capital improvements and an expansion. I believe I heard Patrick Hammer mention. So
Okay.
just wanted to sort of start the discussion with a little presentation.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
And then also, as Brian had some questions about the budget for this year and for next year that are in the general fund line. I'm not familiar with the details on that. So before you come back, Brian, I'll be sure and check on that or get some information on that for you.
Great. Cool, thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay. Looks like next up is new business and updates. Martin, did you want to take over at that point, or?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go through the list. Thanks, Ezzy. Just a couple of new business items. The annual Christmas tree program pickup that happens each year with the two scout groups here. It is troops. I always get the numbers backwards. 278 and 575. We'll be here again, and you'll see the email updates that they send out through eBlast on the newsletter, and then we'll also put it on the website for the pickup date, which will be that Saturday after the 1st. It's usually around 8:30 in the morning, and folks can submit the Google form response and get on the list to get their items picked up by the volunteers working with the Scouts. It's always a great program to do each year, so it's an update item I traditionally try to remember to remind this group about. Really, it's because I'm thinking about next month's newsletter, but I just mentioned it during the updates for this meeting. It's a great annual program that we've done for a long time. We're probably on our, second or third generation of Scouts at this point. And then the other update item that we have on each month is the newsletter items. So the items that were included in this month's newsletter are several of the items that you've seen in previous months. One item I wanted to highlight for the group is, let's see, this last year's. So openings, the committee vacancies that we've been talking about for many months are listed again here in the November newsletter for the 2 vacancies on RCAC and then also 3 vacancies on ProStack. We actually have more applications at this point for each of the groups than there are vacancies for both ProStack and RCAC.
Excellent. Nice.
Which was great. So I don't know what you did, Tanya, at Chili Fest, but thank you.
Nice job. That's awesome.
For getting
Yes,
some
good
folks
job, Tanya. And then
getting some
I think
folks to submit
Daryl like
applications.
threw something out on Arctic the other day at somebody like, get involved, there's vacancies on these too.
Nice.
I'm like, yes, that was a good way to say that.
Awesome, thank you,
Very
Daryl.
cool.
Tanya.
So yeah, after many months of having vacancies and no applications, it's almost an embarrassment of riches at this point to have one more application than we have vacancies. So hopefully we'll have a chance to schedule the interviews with the town board over the next couple of meetings. But as you know, there was an election earlier this week, and we have 3 new board members, so we have a kind of a transition time with the meeting next week. So Monday's meeting will be more about organizational items, and then getting the new board members kind of up to speed and part of the group. So we won't have time for interviews until hopefully the meeting of the 28th and then of this month, so that Monday after Thanksgiving, and then the one meeting in December that's scheduled December 12th, I believe. We'll try and get some interviews in then. So I think we have 7 or 8 total that we'll try to get scheduled between those 2 dates, and then have an opportunity to appoint members to those groups before the January meeting, which would be awesome. And then Daryl's here also, the arts group.
I forgot that I wanted to say something.
Did you want to say something about the arts group? Yeah.
Yeah, just as far as committees are going, if you run out of spots on RCAC and ProStack, send them to the Arts Committee. It's not a formal committee yet, but we're hopeful that on the December 12th meeting that the board will approve. And we're calling it the Cultural Arts and Public Spaces Group. So we want to include not just art, sculpture. We want to be much more inclusive and look at areas of town. We want to bring in writers and all different sorts of creativity in terms of our group. So,
Excellent.
and if you guys want to jump from RCAC to that group. Just kidding. And the other thing, thinking about when we think about the yard waste facility, Jim and I were just talking about the idea possibly of, I think Netherlands doing it. They have a program up there where you put your food waste out. And so one idea I had was that their compost keeper that they have in Boulder, the makers of this, it's sort of like a diaper genie. You put your compost in it, and it twists it up so that it doesn't smell, so you could store it for a good long time in your house, and then you could take it to the yard waste facility and drop it in a container that's actually meant for food waste. So as you're looking at expanding, that might be an interesting, if we could get them to donate or buy, 20 of them, they're about $100 each, and have people, do a pilot project of, food composting.
Yeah.
That grant, thing is out for Boulder County, right?
Oh, that's right.
It is.
That'd be a fun pilot to.
Yeah, it just,
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
even if you had to buy them and then sell them to people at, I don't know, or give it to them so that they can do the project, it would be a really cool way to see if it's useful, if people want to do the
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
home
creative way.
composting.
With Christmas coming, maybe we could throw something into the next we don't even have them to sell. I'm like jumping all ahead. But that's like, how at Christmas we all have so much stuff, and that's like I think that'd be like a great Christmas present, because every teenager would like a diaper genie for their yard waste. By the way, I want to say that I use the yard waste, and the person that's working there is so helpful and so
I
nice.
second that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
my,
He is the most helpful individual.
friendly. What's his name?
Absolutely.
Does anyone know what his
I
name
don't know
is?
his name, but
Yeah,
that yard waste is unbelievably clean since he
Mhm.
started.
Yes.
And I usually take really big bags of leaves and he's always there to help me.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. He's
The
keep
town-
him
yeah.
as an employee, whoever it
It would be
is.
great, but I believe that the Heather Craycraft, the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, it's her son, and I think he went back to college.
Oh,
So
no.
we lost him.
that's not what we're referring to.
No,
Somebody else?
Definitely an
Yeah, I thought
adult,
it was-
not a kid.
I thought
It's
it was
an
an older guy.
Oh, good.
Old gentleman.
That's awesome. We don't always
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
the positives. It's great to hear the positives.
Where we should have an
Well, he's
Mhm.
usually just sitting there doing nothing, so I think he's very happy about it.
Yeah.
That's great. It's great to get
Mhm.
the positive feedback.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
it's a good reflection on the town. And our tax dollars.
Excellent.
I don't think he checks residency, but I don't know if that's a big issue.
It'd be kind of hard to find. I doubt if very many people are coming from out of the town, do you think? Has there ever been a problem with that?
It predates maybe some of the people in this group, but we've had an extensive problem with contractors going there and exploiting our resource availability to have an open dumpster there.
Okay.
So that's why we tried to be a little more stringent on checking IDs, and for people that were obviously contractors dropping off trailer after trailer after trailer of material that's obviously not from somebody's backyard here in
Right.
town.
Okay.
But it's tough. You know, there are folks who have been working in their yard all day that show up and don't remember to bring their ID, and it's tough to say, you schlepped all this stuff here, go home and get your ID. So it's a little bit of an art more than a
Well, at least we
science.
can have them say the address, which address are you from, and then you just write it
Mhm.
down. Normally, it's outside, then you
Mhm.
probably don't even know an address in here. So,
Mhm. That's true.
and see a name and address, Not that we probably check everything, but just in case, we at least keep a record.
We could have a sampling day,
Mhm.
Right,
just to get an idea of
Yeah.
what's coming through.
right.
Yeah, it's a good idea. The attendants that work there, like you mentioned, sometimes they're Vargas staff members, sometimes they're part-time town staff members. It's tough to put them in a position where they're telling somebody no, and they're on their own.
Right.
So
Mhm.
it's
Or we
it's
could
always just a tough
just have a
situation.
simple form, have them, even help them to fill in, just say what's your name, what's your address, and put in there.
Mhm.
Or maybe a phone number, just in case.
Yeah, the logistics
Somewhat.
of the site are just tough. And sometimes there's a long line of cars there if you've been there.
Yeah, it's really nice to me. I've used it a bunch, and it's nice not having too much, process to jump through. I mean, obviously, if you're a contractor, then you'll get checked otherwise.
Yeah,
A
and
lot
I-
of areas have really stringent, ID
Exact-
checking, and it's.
Right, and also we can, it's really is up to the staff on the site. If you see it's, small bag, something, of course, that's probably
Right.
from
Yeah.
the resident. Just those bigger one, and then probably it's good to at least
Mhm.
check once in a while.
Yeah, on the occasions I've been there, it's been the folks who are obviously contractors or really obviously contractors.
Mhm.
And they're
Right.
sometimes the people you
Yes. Yeah.
feel least comfortable saying no to.
Yeah.
So the attendants do a great job trying to wade through that. It's been a great amenity to have that facility open all year. And Brian mentioned earlier that it's the opportunity to enhance the budget and figure out some good ways to use it, and having the expanded hours has been a great use for a lot of folks. But Brian, you hadn't heard that it was open all year, and so we continue to try and get the word out. Not for 2016? Yeah, so we'll continue to try and get that word out. But
If that decision was made in March, that's sort of when the resident traffic starts up.
Mhm.
I think April was when it used to.
Yeah, and tax day to Thanksgiving was kind of the traditional time.
Yeah.
I love that it is open year-round, because I have like 8 aspens that haven't dropped their leaves yet, and we're already in November, so I'm very.
That was a very common
Yeah.
Grateful.
comment that we received, that a lot of trees wouldn't lose their leaves until later in the year, and it was
Right.
a great service expansion or enhancement to have the town be able to open it all year. So it's been a great change. And then like we talked about for the grants for this year, to try and help make some enhancements to the site itself. If you've been there, you've seen sometimes how it gets backed up because people have to drive in
Yes.
and drive back out the same way.
Oh, like maybe have a loop? Are you gonna do a loop?
Trying to find a way to reorient the site and reconfigure it so that there would be a fence, and try to look at some different options to enhance the facility because it's getting so much use
Yeah.
You know, it's a
Yeah,
great
and it
amenity
sounds
for
like
the
Brian
town.
had some good ideas with that, so.
Yeah, and Brian
has
possibly
some
we can
ideas
maybe
too.
put that
Seeing
into
that.
next month's meeting, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we can add it to the agenda if that's convenient for you to come back next month for that meeting. Yeah, that'd be great.
Just because we do want to jump on if the town planning not.
Yeah, absolutely.
For once.
So we were chatting through the newsletter items, and we got stuck a little bit on the openings. Thanks, Daryl, for mentioning the openings for the arts group. I'll mention to the candidates who may be interested in considering the arts group. Does it have an acronym? Was it CAPS? So cultural art and public spaces. Public spaces. So CAPS. You got to have an acronym.
It's an easier acronym than ours.
I know, I don't even know which.
That would be very
It's like-
memorable. Oh, that's funny. So we'll, again, look for the, when you see the town board's meeting agendas, you'll hopefully see the schedule for the interviews at an upcoming meeting with the town board to consider the interviews and then have the appointments at an upcoming meeting. So good problem to have, too many candidates. So also in here is the bulk item note, and then the monthly note that the yard waste site was open year-round. Has been in for a handful of months since that service enhancement happened. So Wednesday, Saturday, and Sundays, this continues to be in the newsletter about the enhanced hours. The windblown trash and the do-good reminder about picking up dog waste. Melissa always finds great pictures of dogs, if you guys notice this from month to month.
I know.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to look at. The Energy Smart tips from Leah Yancey's office. Leah's not here tonight, but her office is always great about forwarding tips from their newsletters that they put out every month, and we have one, usually a seasonal connection. So this month it's the spray foam, and then a reminder about using a loaded dishwasher and how much energy and water that uses. The transit updates. So last month, Lisa, you mentioned the local bus route, Route 228, including that in the transit notes. We added that to the newsletter this month. And then again, the reminder about call and ride and the snow and ice control plan. So Tori's going to put out the word for Snowbusters, Snowbusters program. Oh, the Snowbusters was in this. I only look for my items. That's funny. And then the charm coupon reference in here, and then also the indoor water audits note. So the 7 or 8, maybe 10 articles that have been in for several months are in again. So those are the newsletter updates, Ezzy.
Excellent. So we have the commercial green building measures as a discussion. I went ahead and just incorporated all the different suggestions and things we discussed last time. Was there additional discussion we wanted to do about this, or?
So this was included
What's
with
next
the agenda, and so that everybody got this in their email. So if you didn't have a chance to look at it, the same version that you got emailed to you is up on the screen.
Mhm.
So it's an opportunity to maybe go see if there was anything that didn't work or revisit.
Yeah.
I think it seemed like the scores or the points more or less reflected the contribution and the cost, so
Mhm.
that's sort of where I was coming from, so.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's easy. Yeah.
I just had a comment about, I think, does this refer to the green points that you have to secure if you make a improvement to your home?
No, this is a brand new thing that's going to be more for commercial new construction as well. So it's kind of voluntary things that builders can, well, sort of voluntary, that builders can kind of pick and choose from in order to help improve either water, energy, or kind of general community aspects of different buildings. So especially with all the new town center construction, that's kind of the goal for this particular thing.
At some point, would it be appropriate for me to make a comment about homeowners, permits, and green point requirements?
Sure.
Or should that wait? I'm happy to wait.
I think if there's nothing else that we want to discuss with it here, I'm happy to. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
So I get that this is our first foray toe into the water thing.
Mhm.
What are we expecting to do about getting more mandatory?
Absolutely. I think that'd be good to bring up in the very next meeting, if that sounds good to you. and we'll get on the agenda. I'd also like to discuss, Excel Energy has a partnership program as well, where they work with local communities, and they're currently partnering with Lafayette, Louisville, and a couple other local areas. So they basically have kind of targeted energy efficiency programs that they can run to help communities meet energy goals. And there's a lot of flexibility there. So I think both that and the more stringent building codes are something I'd like to discuss at the next meeting.
Yeah, because Martin, weren't you saying at the last meeting that it was until December at best before we would be able to get any time in front of the board? Is that
And it's
right?
really going to be, it's really the first of the year, because the.
So I think that's kind of, not that we didn't want it before then, but we missed our one window before the
Oh, that's
budget
true.
stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was the time on the agenda last month that just didn't work out for the group. So
Right.
with the one meeting with the new group this coming Monday, and then the meeting on the Monday after Thanksgiving, and then the one meeting in December have really packed agendas.
Okay.
It's not going to fit on an agenda, I would assume, until
Okay.
hopefully
Well, maybe
January.
If we have a little extra time today, we can discuss it at least at kind of a high level, and then we'll get on the agenda as soon as possible after that.
Yes,
But
we
I think
should.
that's-
So how, do you have all the information on that Excel program that you were talking about?
I have some information. It's been a little while since I looked at it, but I also know someone in Excel that would be happy to give a presentation or provide additional information as well.
Because that would be
This
excellent
group.
for next month, too, then kind of, if we're going to
That's
package
true.
it to kind of, because we're in November, so that'll be December, so it'd be good to kind of wrap it all up so that we're ready as soon as
Mhm.
there's space for us on
Okay.
the
At the very
agenda.
least, I can have her send out some information to the whole group so that we can kind of all look at it in our free time as well.
Sounds great.
Just to make this meeting a little bit more efficient, hopefully.
Mhm.
So I'd be happy to do that.
Awesome.
Um,
So ideally have both ready for the board to consider as soon as they can get on an agenda?
Thank you.
Yep.
Perfect.
And what's the Excel program, Izzy? I didn't catch it if you.
I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking on the name right now.
It's okay.
It's,
I just wondered if you knew off the
uh,
top of your head.
Some community engagement.
Yeah, I think so. It's the.
That's okay. You
Starts
you
with
can
P.
think of it. Think of
I'll
it
find it
later.
out.
You mean
No,
Pace?
no, it's different from Pace. It's from Excel, but I'll find it out and
Excel.
yeah.
But otherwise, we think we're good then
I don't know.
on this, the
Yes.
sustainable
there's your
option.
Jim.
Perfect.
Oh,
Yeah.
Package it up, make it pretty, and go talking. It's
Pretty
probably
good already?
This is commercial, what we're talking here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So on the water conservation, passive rainwater harvesting elements, I've looked at the law pretty carefully because we were dealing with it in the HOA, but I thought it was residential. The law allows it residential. Does it allow it for commercial?
Active versus passive. So active is not allowed for commercial, meaning actively taking water, putting it in a barrel.
Mhm.
But passive rainwater harvesting is actually just designing the landscape to capture runoff before it runs.
Just like we do with our retaining ponds and everything else?
Like micro versions of that. So they won't necessarily do a retaining pond, but they might make the landscape form so that you don't need irrigation for plants to you have a well.
So are there limits on, like on the residential, you can only do so many gallons and only have 2 barrels? Are there the same kind of limits?
Okay, commercial, there's no limits for it because passive water harvesting is actually not regulated
Not part of
by
the-
law, by water law, because it still goes downstream eventually or into the ground.
Right.
It's not being contained in a container.
It's not being removed from the system, from the
It's not being
cycle?
removed from the
I'm
system.
just curious.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sharon, would you do me a favor and just
Oh, yeah, I'm
summarize,
sorry.
restate briefly?
Absolutely, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I forget that this has to be on record. Apologies. Sharon Procopio, consultant. So active water harvesting versus passive, just for clarification. Active is containing it in a container. It's legal on the residential side. It's not legal for commercial now with the new law. Passive water harvesting is not regulated in the same way because it's not considered, the water is not actually removed from the water system. It's still moving downstream, but at a slower rate, which allows plants and other things to benefit from it for landscape purposes only. So hopefully that sums it up.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
So are there any further comments about this particular item, or if not, I'd be happy to open it up to your discussion as well, at least kind of hear your thoughts, but does that sound good to everyone?
yep.
Great.
Cool. So, yeah, if you want to share your thoughts.
Brian Hill, Kyoto Lane. A couple of years ago, we were thinking about finishing our basement. So, when you apply for the permit, there's some requirements to do some, one, a home energy audit, and two, make some green point improvements. So it would be things like LED light bulbs, motion sensor switches, things like that. And I don't know what they're costing these days, but the home energy audit that we got cost us maybe $160. I think that was the low end, and I believe that they were subsidized at that point, through government subsidies. But after having the home energy auditor come out, and she spent a long time, probably 3 to 4 hours, and she was up in our attic, and did the the blower fan tests and the infrared camera. She did a lot, but in the final analysis, most of the recommendations that she came back with weren't cost effective, and it makes me wonder if the amount of money I spent on the home energy audit would have been better invested on known energy reduction efforts. And so I was just kind of curious, if that whole process is being evaluated or not. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I don't know the specifics of that. I haven't looked into that in particular, but I do know that in general, it's hard to know what the opportunities are until you've actually gone in and evaluated it. And so, that just getting the audit in the first place is kind of the first step before you can really move forward with cost-effective measures or not. And so I know, at least on the residential side, the commercial it's a little bit different, but on the residential side, the audits are a pretty important first step. But I don't know, Lisa.
No, I was just going to say.
A lot of other
and
suggestions.
how cost-effective something is depends on what your time horizon is. So
Exactly.
if you're looking for payback in 1 or 2 years, then I bet there's not a lot in these homes. It's not like you've got an existing home that's brick with no insulation in the Northeast, in a bad climate zone. So these homes are a little newer than that. So if you're looking for a 1 or 2 year cost-effective payback, then I'm not surprised that nothing came up. But 4 to 5, I'll wager that there were a few things that could happen. So.
But either way, thank you for bringing it up, and we'll definitely look into it as well. I'd be curious. So.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, if you take out original town, all these homes, the oldest ones are like 93, and they're all.
I'm in the demo.
Oh, you are? Oh, congratulations. I love the demo one.
Everybody's been in my house, yeah.
You do have a lot of shingles that get blown off, though, because
Yes,
you get the wind head on. But yeah, that is a good point, because, because all the houses are fairly new. And I know I've paid for an audit, and it was just kind of smaller stuff. Basically, they told me my refrigerator was a big energy sucking machine, and to get a new one, and please do not put the old one in the garage.
Yeah.
So that is a good point. How much was the energy audit? Do you remember?
I want to say it was $160, but I can't remember.
Okay.
I think they often vary between 100 to 300-ish, depending on level of, how in-depth you're getting. And then also it depends on what rebates you're getting as well. I know Excel has rebates, some of the different governmental areas of rebates as well, so.
Some of the auditors work for insulation companies, so there's some sort of economic exchange or anticipation perhaps involved with their marketing.
Yeah. But yeah,
That's
thank you.
interesting.
Jim?
I think about it.
Jim Payne, again, can I go back to this for a second? I was here for most of the discussion
sure.
leading up to
Yeah.
this, so I understand it. But at what stage of the concept and development review process does this come into play?
Martin, do you have
At the final development plan approval stage, or final site plan for the Rock Creek PD.
So, okay, and then how does that, although I know even at the concept stage, a lot of developers, if they're planning on doing this, they'll make that, they'll sort of make that point. But how does this relate to the in most of the major parcel review processes, there's a point at which there's a sort of back and forth about set-asides for open space and those sorts of things. And we have in our rules, in our the ordinances or whatever we had in the chapter 16, we have guidelines about that.
Sure.
So how does that relate to this? In other words, does that, I know there's some that sort of touch on it, sort of trails, walkability and so forth, but are they two different processes now, or is this all in the same process? Because it would seem to me that if you, say, beat a developer up and get this great percentage of land that's set aside for open space, and then you have this discussion, or is it all together?
The short version, it's all together. The public
Okay.
hearing during which the board considers a final development plan or a final plat site plan would entail any and all restrictions or additional requirements or commitments through a subdivision improvement agreement to do anything beyond.
But I
their
thought that
project
was
itself.
done at a sort of in the process and the give and take back and forth before you actually laid the FDP before the board or the planning commission.
Well, it's up to the developer to present what they would like during
Right.
the public hearing. And the board can only consider what's presented during that public hearing. So if any of these measures were to be included, that would be included in their submittal packet.
Right. So is it conceivable that in this process, the open space, which is one of the major articles for discussion or subjects for discussion in the process, sort of takes a further back seat because of all these other variables? I'm not going anywhere with this. I'm just trying to understand how it works.
No, I understand where you're coming from, Jim. There's a whole spectrum of items that staff reviews as part of the development plan review process, and this would be one of them. There's 75 or 85 other kind of data points or touchstones, and open space and parking and lighting and water and drainage and stormwater. Those are all absolutely reviewed and essential parts of the public hearing process, and this would be an additional one to go through
Right,
in
but
order
it's-
to
it's-
refine, in order to put together their
It's
submittal.
quite possible, if not likely, that in that process, to get some of these things might be more lenient or more, we might accept less of an open space commitment for that parcel. But who knows?
Yeah, I
I'm
wouldn't
not such
be
a-
able to conjecture on what the board's interested in approving.
Right.
But as part of the development review process, when staff makes a recommendation, it goes through the development application process. All of those items would be touched on, and this would be one of them. And then it would be the plan that the developer wishes to present to the board for consideration. It's ultimately up to them whether or not they want to include anything less or anything more, and it's up to the board to consider whether or not they wish to approve it or disapprove it.
Right, because there are not a large number of points allocated in this model to open space commitments.
Yeah, so the provisions through which the town considers open space have nothing to do with this. Open
Okay.
space considerations are completely separate.
Yeah, this is totally, this is building.
Thanks.
SE, I sent all the stuff about water and bikes to integrate into here, and it just occurred to me, we talked a little bit about, I think someone had a question last time about building materials and how you would verify. I did find that in LEED, what they seem to be doing is pointing people towards organizations that have lists of recyclable or recycled items, and so they're saying purchase through one of these organizations and or use a certification program that does verification, so that's not
Gotcha.
individual towns and cities looking at piles of things and saying, I verify that this is recycled. You're basically going on like the Amazon of recycled materials to purchase things and then showing proof of purchase. So
Gotcha. Okay.
that was, I know that was a
Cool.
concern about that third or second to the end down. So
Yeah.
sorry I didn't email that one out, but
That's fine. If you
Jogged
wouldn't
my
mind just
memory.
shoot me a note at your convenience.
I
then
will.
can
I'll
see
forward
if
it.
that
I
makes
have it
sense
in my
to-
email, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew I had it,
Okay.
and I'll send it to you.
Cool, thanks so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
I have one other comment on this topic.
Sure.
Brian Hilligan. At the last town board meeting, it was proposed that the town pass an ordinance for the low-speed electric vehicles and golf carts and such. And it was voted against. But, I wonder if, is a concept like that considered for a community like the town center, or, integrated communities like the town center, marketplace, original town, whereby you're going to have a lot of tourists or visitors coming in for extended stay, and perhaps shuttling them throughout that particular combination of communities might reduce traffic, congestion, air pollution, and such. And I was just wondering if that was something that might be integrated into something like this.
Yeah, it sounds like that might be something I think is definitely worth consideration. I think probably it wouldn't fit into this particular document just because of the way it's structured, but yeah, if you wanted to include some information as well when you send out the report, or just kind of your thoughts, then we can kind of take the next step and see if it makes sense to discuss or how it might best fit in.
Sure.
But yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that could be an additional general category if there was a way to pick a thing, an alternative mode promotion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. All right, well, I think we can move on to the next item. I can't remember which one it was. Work plan, okay.
Yeah, so work plan. So I'm sorry, if I can get one quick go back. Tori Peterson is
absolutely.
here from the Parks, Rec, and Open Space Department, and I neglected to mention the holiday event that the town's going to host next month, and it was right here at the top, and I skipped right over it. So the stocking run, and then also the Christmas lights event. It's going to be a little count the lights will be a little different this year. So if you don't have plans for December, that first weekend in December on the 3rd, the town's going to host the Count the Lights event at Asty Park again this year. And Tori and her colleagues in Parks, Rec, and Open Space do a great job hosting this. And you'll see some new twists this year. There is going to be an elf in the tree. That's the one that caught my eye. But there will be a town Christmas tree, essentially, that will be lit, and we count the lights and submit it. But yeah, the elf in the tree really sticks with me. And they follow you as you walk around the park. The other item associated with December is the annual article that we try to include each year on gift or the Eco Holiday Guide. So last year, this group has traditionally put together, or somebody's found a really good article to include about how to do a better job of not having additional waste associated with gift giving. I copied this article from EcoCycle last year, and I was going to check EcoCycle's website and see if there was another one, unless somebody had another one. That was just one newsletter go back item. So if somebody runs across one and has a good idea, feel free to send it. Otherwise, I'll run with whatever EcoCycle has in theirs.
Cool, thanks.
All right, so work plan. I started making a couple of revisions to the work plan based on last year's, starting with the date. And then I kind of went through it quickly. This is a lot of items that y'all have talked about several times over the last couple of years. So for the folks that have been around for these in the past, thanks, Joe. You're familiar with it, so we talked a little bit about it last month. I sent the copy of this with your meeting materials this month. The idea is to talk about any changes this month and next month, and then have a final recommendation for the board to consider at their January, usually the second meeting in January.
Okay.
So with that, it's up to you to have at it. Glad to help with any questions I can.
Do we want to just walk through it briefly? Does that sound?
That would be good, because I cannot see it, my printout didn't.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
Or it didn't print, I guess.
So I can just kind of read through, and then I guess, Martin, if you just want to scroll down as we get to stuff, and then if anyone has any comments or thoughts, feel free to just interject.
Sweet.
So kind of ongoing projects are residential and commercial energy audits, Boulder County household hazardous facility use, recycling education for residents and businesses, promoting the town's diversion goal, promoting currently offered curbside organic subscription service in coordination with Rock Creek Master HOA, and continue enhanced communication with HOA. update website on environment programs and education, evaluating recycling programs universally, water conservation and drought strategies, and assembling the monthly town newsletter articles. Is there anything else that, any concerns or things that are missing?
Sounds great for ongoing.
Okay.
We think we thought.
Sounds like the first meeting's work is set.
Can we go down to the fourth quarter, the last one?
Yeah, so I can.
Last year's.
Oh, this is last year's?
Well, it is, but we
This
just usually
year's.
modify it to see what, like, we didn't do.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and look at the first quarter, and then we can kind of go through that. So we have research methods to address construction and demolition materials from new developments in Superior. Researching organics composting program options for residential and commercial areas of Superior. Confirming compliance for all new developments in Superior with existing energy and recycling code requirements. And that's definitely something that we want to, follow up on and make sure that that's more stringent. What was that? Reviewing collection data for trash and recycling from the town service providers and compare with other jurisdictions.
Can I break quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just have a quick question for Jim. Do we have any data from the HOA trash contract?
Sure. Martin and I exchanged the data.
Yeah.
We get the same data for the two separate programs, the municipal program and the association program. And we get it monthly, and we compare those. He then consolidates that for other reporting. There's certain county reporting, up-reporting requirements that he then passes it along. So, yeah, that's all carefully watched and shared.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's simply tonnage
Right.
of trash, recycling, and then numerator, denominator. They calculate the diversion rate.
Yeah, it's not sophisticated
No.
math. Thankfully, I can do it. But it's-
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at it. I mean, in fact, we had a long discussion about it today because there are always issues with it. Waste Connections, in fact, I had a meeting with them this morning, and they're now outfitting their trucks with some new capabilities, such as GPS monitoring, and they seem to have some ability to get the direct reporting of the weights through this new system, but we'll see. We'll see what that means. But we're always looking at it, and it's always a challenge.
Okay.
And I'm not sure the data is always fully reliable either, but it's the best we have.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Thanks. So I guess next up we have the indoor residential water audits, which are great. Reviewing programs that can encourage residents to implement better grass and landscaping that use less water and develop a schedule for outreach over the course of the spring and summer months. Promoting Boulder County Energy Smart Program and energy audits in general, which we already touched on briefly. Research the Garden in a Box program and present recommendations for next steps.
I'll go ahead and jump in there if you don't mind, Desi. So
Absolutely.
During the joint meeting with the board in April, it was April or May, the committee chatted with the board about this, and the board was interested in moving forward with participating in the Garden in a Box. And Tori Peterson was kind enough to reach out to the folks at CRC, the Community Resource Conservation Resource Center. Yeah, that one, CRC. And subscribed us or got us signed up to be a participant for next year.
Excellent.
So that was one to check off the box if I didn't let everybody know about that over the last couple of months.
Because I did just get an email from them today.
Yeah, they send out those emails each month, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we have to do that
In
right at the
spring.
beginning, just to make sure we get on the list if we want to do it, so.
Yeah.
Cool.
Jim Payne again, if I could, if we could coordinate on, if we're doing an expanded effort on that and promoting it more, which is fine.
It's just offering it through town. I think we had done it at some point in the past. Lisa reminded me we had done that at some point in the past, where we are able to give out either coupons or give out the actual gardens in a box at a discount.
So how many numbers are we?
About 50 gardens in a box that'll be sponsored through the town.
Have we ever followed up and seen how they're used? I mean, we know who they go to. We ever any attempt, or would it be possible? I'm not saying it's anything you should have done, but would it be possible to
I'm not familiar with
What
it.
would we be looking for? Just asking.
Just to see how they use it, and
Go back and visit the addresses that have signed up for them in the past and see how they've been
Right.
used to propagate or take over the yard. Yeah, I'm not familiar with any follow-up.
I'm just curious.
And
Okay.
we all that to list.
Cool.
Oh, seriously?
All right, so moving on to the
I'm
second
sorry,
quarter.
Ezzy, before you move on.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Tori's whispering in my ear. Go ahead and-
So CRC has kind of started a program where people can voluntarily say, like, here's a photo of my yard before I put in the garden in a box, and then here's a photo of what it looked like after. And so they're kind of doing that within their own program, and so I can kind of touch base with them and see how that went.
So some good before and after kind of pictures?
Yeah, so it's more of just like
That's exactly what I was.
Yeah, it's just a before and after, just to like kind of show people more for their marketing, but I don't know if they're like tracking specific details about it, but there are like before and
That'd be
after
great.
photos.
So they have some of those now?
They were coordinating it last year, and when I met with them, they were talking about it, but I don't know if they've done like a full year with
Right.
it or not, so I could touch base
It'd
with
be,
them.
if they have anything, it'd
Yeah.
be great to see.
And I actually, I wouldn't want it to be used for the HOA to come and complain that people didn't get their permission to plant them. That's why I'm not
Well, we have to.
going up and down
That's-
going, yeah, let's do
Come,
that. I don't
yeah.
want, I
Well,
want
we
to
don't
provide
have-
a service for the town residents and give them something great that, helps them use less water. But I don't want to use an evaluation of it as a way to wrap them out to the HOA. That's to put it baldly. So.
Yeah, that's put very boldly. But, but the point is, what we try to do is, if something's being promoted, we try to make sure that everybody understands, and we don't see necessarily any problems. I mean, we work closely with this committee in the town and have been a big promoter of xeriscaping, and we're very, very anxious to do it, but
And the
sometimes it
box
helps.
isn't big. It's not like it's, something that's going to completely destroy whatever the green space percentage is and the rest of that stuff. It's, it's pretty small, so that's why, yeah.
No, I understand. That's why I just was trying to understand how it's being used, and if there's a broader usage of them, there may be that we need to provide, advice up front about how to stay within because all you're doing is putting someone at risk of getting, it's nice to say that, Lisa, but if we see it and it's something that is against the covenants, then they get fined, and then their $150 or whatever it costs box of garden in a box is going to cost them many times more. I don't see that happening. I mean, we're fine with it. I just trying to understand what the impact. And if you look on their website.
The reason I'm saying it is, it's like when we do projects where we evaluate energy conservation programs, and we find in that project that there's some huge energy use in some house that clearly indicates they're a marijuana grow house or something in an illegal, a state that doesn't allow that sort of stuff. We never report that to the utility. That's just not done. And I see a real parallel here of not wanting to if we're doing maybe some kind, that's sort of an evaluation, and then have it go to somebody that's going to cause people.
Yeah, we don't
That's what we're trying to avoid.
We don't report, and we would do the same thing. I mean, if we go into a house, someone has a question
No,
or
I'm
into a
saying
yard.
you're that authority that we wouldn't want to, you guys, the HOA is the authority.
Right, but I'm not interested in it for after the fact. We're not interested in it for after the fact monitoring of any kind. It either shows up in an inspection or it doesn't. We don't go to that length. But I just want to see how people are using it. On their website, they have quite a range. Most of it is perfectly fine. Some of it could present a problem. So all we would do is if there is a usage or pattern of use that is going to create a problem, we either need to change the rules or tell people that it's going to create a problem. So it's not an inspection thing. It's just for information.
Thanks, Jim. Does anyone else have any need to leave pretty soon? I know we're losing our PAC members, but yeah. Well, we could just hold off here and review starting the second quarter next meeting if that sounds good, or I'm happy either way. But yeah, okay.
Sure. Yeah, I guess if you wouldn't mind, maybe just skim through the second and third quarter.
Yeah, I'm
maybe
happy to.
flag some items that you might want to come back to next month.
Sure. So we got the PACE program. Sharon, do you know if PACE is expanding? I thought I heard something recently about PACE kind of expanding onto new areas. So.
They are. I haven't been in touch with my one point of contact, but I do think they're continuing, and I think they are trying to branch out to the other parts of the county for sure.
Okay.
You guys, maybe it's here, but I know you mentioned the grants from PACE.
Oh, thank you.
Sharon
University
Procopio. You guys mentioned the grants from PACE or from Boulder County. And are those on here somewhere to make sure that you submit for those in time? Are those dates here? Because I feel like that's an important thing to have
That's
in the
true.
work
That'd be
plan.
helpful to make sure we include.
To make
those
sure
have
you.
been the committee doesn't fill out grant forms, staff does.
Oh, okay,
right.
cool.
Oh, so it's nothing the committee has to do. Gotcha.
Okay, that
Good.
makes it easy then.
If you'd like to, though, I'd love to hand out. I've got a big binder I'd like to just hand off to somebody.
That's okay. I wouldn't want to.
Are those items on this list in case the grants are funded? Those items that you were going to pursue?
Well, the items that would be pursued would be enhancements to the yard waste facility.
Oh, right,
So
that's
what
right.
the recommendation from the committee has been to continue to sponsor it. You know, the policy recommendation, I guess, that started with this committee was to have a yard waste facility in the beginning, and then to continue to spend the money, which is enhanced pretty significantly, like Brian mentioned earlier this year, but to continue to fund that. That's been the policy recommendation that's come from this committee to the board to include in the budget. But as far as individual enhancements or things like that, they've traditionally been just capital items more than policy items. But if the committee is interested in branching out.
Mhm.
Can I just ask a question? Wasn't there a ballot measure? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I didn't keep track of all of the ballot measure outcomes, but I think there was one that had to do with sustainability,
There was a county
Boulder
measure that was
County.
passed
Mhm.
pretty significantly.
county measure, and it passed.
It
Okay,
did.
so that would
It did.
continue to fund some of these
Well,
programs.
for the county program, so as you mentioned, the PACE program, the business recognition programs,
Energy Smart.
Energy Smart, and maybe some sponsorship or grant sponsorship for Garden in a Box, some of the various programs, and the audit program for both indoor and outdoor irrigation.
Mhm.
Those are all county either sponsored or partnered programs that could be supplemented by that sustainability tax increase, yes. Not
Okay.
even an increase, it's a reapportionment of an existing county open space tax that's going to be split between open space maintenance and then sustainability programs.
Okay.
Like
Mhm.
these and other programs that the county is looking at.
Okay.
That will come before the commissioners.
Thank you.
Excellent. So we got PACE, Business Recognition Program in conjunction with PACE. So for businesses that actually step up and do, different measures to improve sustainability, I guess, recognizing those publicly. Light bulb education for residences and businesses in Superior through
That
the
was
newsletter.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Desi.
Yeah, sure.
I'll just jump in.
Yep, feel
So
free.
this was an item that was new to this group during last year's work plan.
Mhm.
And Joe had mentioned it, and the group had talked about, I think, a couple of times, some of the inconsistent information about how to dispose of light bulbs. And so we had in a couple of newsletters through the first couple of quarters, I know it was first quarter, probably second quarter, on light bulb disposal and education. But it hasn't been for a few months, so I'll write myself a note to
I
include
think
that.
we have talked as well about kind of providing general education around lighting, because there are so many different options now between LEDs and CFLs and all the different application-specific technologies. And so I remember us talking a little bit about that, so maybe we could, I don't know, Lisa?
And I would have suggested that we educate people that, incandescents are no longer going to be allowed and all that. But with the election, actually, there's been a rumble in the industry saying that may just go away after
Oh,
Tuesday.
Of course. Well, so we'll
Just- We
TBD.
just had to rescope a whole lighting evaluation for Connecticut.
So overturning ESA or
Yeah.
ISA? Wow.
People
All right.
are worried.
It's going to be a long 4 years.
Thanks for the reminder.
So let's see. So we'll figure out the light bulb education and whether we want to provide that or kind of general information about efficiency. The outdoor residential water audits, which are great. The yard waste facility, which we've already touched on.
And
Continue
this will be one to
recycling.
update, because it's traditionally been in the second quarter when it opens, but now it's a year-round item, so it's either an
That's true,
ongoing
so maybe
item
we
or
should move
first
that
quarter.
to
Well,
Q1.
maybe with when people would generally start yard work, yeah.
Mhm.
And here it's all year.
Well,
but we'll have the monthly.
So should we move this to ongoing then, or?
Isn't there
I'm
a
not sure it
spring
matters a
planting
whole lot.
time? I mean, that's what I'm trying to say, it's kind of,
Mhm.
if
Usually
you do
around
something
Arbor
all the
Day.
time, it's not, people don't see it. You
Right.
need to have a push at particular points of time that are appropriate, or people
Mhm.
don't see it, it becomes background, so that's all I'm saying.
Mhm.
So I think it belongs in that quarter, that seems like the right quarter to do it, because, in conjunction maybe with a fall one during the leaf season or something,
Mhm.
but, yeah.
So maybe
I would suggest we
I'll put,
keep it seasonal, not, yeah.
a spring reminder, growing season.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
it's more about kind of education and outreach for the spring and fall, and then we have kind of an ongoing task as well, since it's, okay. Continue recycling.
Sure, yeah. So just for the record, Jim mentioned how we coordinate our promotion between the town's information regarding plantings and some of the reminders like this. And I'll make a note to sync up with Jim when we get closer to that during the calendar year.
Should we get the, in the spring reminder also about the HOA, the curbside pickup for, oh, no, not anymore? The like a kitchen, like a, there was a compostable. Did it? Oh.
You're talking about the organics pickup?
Yeah, like
Versus
I
the
thought
bulk
there was
item.
a flyer like 2 years ago. They actually people can sign up, and then pay a little fee, and then it goes from April to August.
Not a little fee, a big fee, yeah.
Okay. Big
Are you
fee.
talking about the composting that we
compost,
do?
yeah.
Yeah, well, we do, that's already wired in, we do that.
That's in the Waste
Together.
Connections contract that the town has, and I
Okay.
believe also through the
But-
HOA's contract.
but
So we've
publicity-
been-
Suggesting promoting it as a
Promoting.
Yeah, that's what I meant, like
we
in
already
spring.
do that. We
Gotcha.
already, the windblown trash, that whole composting
Right.
is already in our joint communications.
And I think she's just suggesting that we're doing a spring reminder about
Yeah.
yard waste drop-off. We should do a
All
spring
right,
reminder about
absolutely.
this
Yeah,
program.
Right,
absolutely.
right.
That'd
that's
be
'cause-
perfect timing for that.
Right.
I get you.
Cool. So continuing recycling education programs in schools. And then, of course, all the events, so the Household Hazardous Waste and Hard to Recycle event in April, the Shred It and E-Cycle event with Guardian Storage, and then the Sustainability Corner at Arbor Day. And then developing the 2017 budget recommendations. So expanding compost options is something we had talked about. Yeah, is that the correct timing for that? Or?
Second quarter, huh?
Mm.
Because they start
For-
discussing in August, huh?
For the budget
For
recommendations?
budget, no, budget's all, we work on budget really all year, and then
Okay.
the budget review committee begins their review of the submittals traditionally in kind of the May-June timeframe. That's when
Gotcha.
each individual departments are responsible for submitting it. Mhm.
Wow. Okay. Good to know.
It sneaks up on us.
So
But
those include
those are the programs that were considered kind of
Mhm.
the holdover big picture programs that the committee's looked at over the last couple of years. And I don't know if it was me or one of the committee members recommended just bullet pointing them through the annual work plan, just to make sure that
Mhm.
the board had a chance to see those are the things that you're focusing on for next year's budget. You need the big picture items.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And continuing a dog park compost program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yep.
Brian Hill. I think last year, and I don't know about previous years, but the household hazardous waste was canceled due to weather. Is there any way that that might be moved into a more weather-friendly period of time? Or
Like
if that's
summer?
even of
Like
interest
summer?
to the committee?
Brian, just to give you the kind of the quick answer, the committee's talked about this with staff over the last couple of years, and the dates that work for both the county and for EcoCycle are a narrow window, and then our places in which to host it really is only at El Dorado K8, where there's a big enough place, and the only time that they will allow us to do it is when they don't have school on a Friday and a Monday, because we have to drop off the Gaylords in the restrooms on that Friday before, and they can't have kids there when there's skid steers and other material. So it comes back to us being small and without facilities, unfortunately. But I'll give you the quick answer on that.
And it didn't work in the town center or the parking lot?
I thought it worked great in the parking lot. The
too.
owner of the mall is not interested in having it there again.
Never again.
And they were very clear with me when I made a sincere plea for help when our backs were against a wall in 2014?
It was nice.
To have it was at the parking lot where the IHOP is. It was I'm going to say maybe not underused, so there's definitely space in that parking lot, but the folks who worked there were very specific in that it was a one-time favor to the town.
And Guardian Storage's flow or space wouldn't really work, huh? They've been so
It would-
friendly, I'm just thinking.
It would be nice. Their parking lot really isn't big enough, and there's only one way in and one way out, so you come back
Isn't
to
that
that.
a good thing? I mean, I was thinking that flow would work.
Oh, I was actually thinking the opposite, because at the school, because you can drive in one and drive out the other. At Guardian, everybody drives in the same place and has to drive out the same place. So you end up with just a conflict.
I thought it was, I thought it was a loop, no?
Yeah, same entrance.
It's that choke point. But I understand where you're coming from. Just having people enter and exit at a different spot, it just helps a lot for
It's
just
key.
sequencing
I
and
thought they
staging.
had that.
Yeah, just that
3 years
flow.
ago, we did that at the North Pool. That was like only one entrance and exit at the same. Yeah, it's a little bit congested, but it wasn't too bad actually.
It is a little congested, and then
Yeah, it
and
was
with
congested.
about 150, 165 people that come, the issue that came up there, you'll remember this, Lisa, is that the traffic ends up backing out onto the street, and then in front of Superior Elementary, and then we ended up getting a lot of, I don't know, suggestions to not host it there. I think we did it a polite way.
I don't need to dwell on the one thing, and I'm sorry to do that, but maybe one of the things that we should be thinking about is when we approve developments or something, that we say that one of the things we expect out of a town development is that they work on a positive basis with the town on a, once a year or once every 2 years basis or something. Maybe we just say, if you're going to be part of town, you're going to be part of town. Discipline.
Mhm. Maybe another item to add for, well, it's an ongoing item, I'm doing it to myself. It's not a construction item, but for the sustainability list.
Cool. So that's all the second part.
Yes, we always have that need for like a conference room or a, public meeting room or something like that. And maybe there's sorts of things we kind of say, hey, we're approving it, maybe a little give and take.
Mhm.
So I'll be quiet.
Oh, thanks.
With some of the parking lots that'll be.
No, I mean, sorry. Thanks for your comment. Thanks for the comment, not for shutting up.
Hopefully at the town center, there's would be some significant parking areas and maybe some areas that would work to fit this.
Mhm.
Well, too bad Joe won't be there. We could put a bug in his ear, look for a parking lot design that would work for us.
Yeah, that would have been nice. So for the third quarter, we've got researching commercial recycling opportunities.
Oh.
Yeah, which I think would be great. Outdoor residential water audits, which has worked out well. Yard waste facility, again, and that's going to become more of an outreach type task. Exploring the possibility of a fall leaf collection program, which I know we've talked a little bit about before. And then encouraging recycling plans for all businesses through the PACE program. Any comments, thoughts, suggestions on any of those?
Yeah, I think the possibility of a fall leaf collection program would be kind of fun, and we should talk to Lewis about what it costs them. Oh, they maybe stopped their program. They used to have a
I don't
program where
know.
they had a leaf, like, sucker up thing, I don't know, something like that. Maybe now that they have curbside collection, they've stopped it, but I don't know, we should find out what they did.
Yeah, I'd be curious to
Maybe
see.
they have a leaf truck they want to get rid of.
That'd be
Anyway.
nice.
Just a
Cool.
thought.
Hey, I've seen some things on leaf logs.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how that works in the scope of conservation and environmental sustainability, but there are folks who collect their leaves, they put them in these cylinders and compress them, perhaps with some sort of glue or sap or some sort of natural binder, and then they create these logs, which are then burnt. But I'm not sure if that would be a viable consideration for this, or if it's even environmentally good to be burning and generating those particulates. But
Mhm.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's definitely interesting. Haven't heard of that.
Thanks.
What's it
Yeah,
called
thanks.
again, Brian? A leaf log?
Leaf logs.
Leaf
So
log.
they basically take these PVC tubes, and then they have all kinds of contraptions. They're sort of hacker, maker types of implements. They take the leaves, pine needles, whatever. They put it in this log. They add like a watery glue mixture, and let it mix up, and then they compress it. And then they let it dry, and then they extrude it,
Mhm.
and it becomes a leaf log.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Something maybe Boy Scouts or groups might be interested in
Mhm.
doing, and then they would have a product to sell as a fundraiser.
That's true. All right, and then the fourth quarter is pretty sparse comparatively. So continuing the recycling education programs. Sorry, did you?
Yeah, I said, that's okay, that it's sparse.
Yeah,
Will be-
I
everything
totally
will be
agree.
finished before it gets kind of shut
Right,
down.
exactly. No, I'd much rather have lots of space. Initiating Arbor Day invitations for Sustainability Corner.
That's
Is
a
that-
fourth quarter item that Rachel Bray was interested in, making sure that we talked to the lady at CRC, or I can't remember who it was.
It's a great reminder.
Yeah, to make
Okay.
sure that we try to get somebody who would be available for Arbor Day, because all the folks who are the really high demand speakers and presenters are always booked out, well, usually well
Cool.
ahead
That
of
makes
Arbor
sense.
Day.
Yeah, that's an excellent one then.
That's a great idea.
I don't,
Um,
she called somebody at the Denver Botanical Society, I don't remember who it was.
Yeah.
Ring a bell.
And then the very last one is the fall Shred It and E-Cycle event with Guardian Storage.
Well, I've got a quick question. How come we didn't have that this year in October, like a partnership with Guardian to have like a, recycle or, no, we did not.
The folks at Guardian weren't interested in doing it in the fall.
This year?
Mhm. It was an ad.
All forever.
The person who's in charge of the local facility there is new and wasn't interested in participating in the fall. The town standard has always been to do the spring one, and it was nice of them to host it in the fall, and we're going to host it in the spring, and we're going to try and make sure that they'll be interested in doing it in the spring again.
Mhm.
Okay.
So they don't want to do it every fall or just this year?
What we heard from the new manager there now is no this year, for this fall.
Oh, okay.
Nothing beyond
Okay.
that.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a fall event.
Yeah, it was a bummer to hear that. Traditionally, spring is much busier than the fall, but it was a nice add-in to have that available in the fall.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Is this still going on, the coupon thing? Can we send
From
that
Guardian?
out? Like, for the,
For people who need to recycle,
like, you take to the Boulder, take to the 50%?
Oh, to go to
thing?
the
Is
charm
that-
site?
Yeah,
Sure.
is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
still going on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
i-
well, that.
Is it possible to resend that in newsletter?
I think I saw it in the
It's been
newsletter.
in a-
You did?
Yeah.
Again, new one?
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, the most recent one. I believe
Okay,
it's in there.
so it can be found on the website then?
Yes.
Okay,
It's been in the newsletter, I think, every month.
Is that it?
Did I just skim over it? There it is. So it's this coupon
Yeah.
right here.
okay.
And there's copies of it out front for folks who don't want to print it.
Oh,
Or
okay.
bring it up on their phone.
All right.
Cool. Any other final comments on the document? Mm-hmm. Oh, no, thanks.
Brian Hill again, interesting subjects. I was wondering if there's a mechanism for getting call and ride ridership statistics. I was wondering how that program was going, and I noticed that there was about $1,500 paid out to an organization relative to call and ride recently. I think maybe they do marketing for that program. So just wondering if is that within your purview of this committee's purview of call and ride?
The short answer is the call and ride numbers from RTD will be presented to the board when we get a report from them. So I'd be glad to pass that along to this group when we get one. I don't know that we've received one.
Oh, okay. But that's generally not a area of responsibility for RCAC?
I don't know that it's a responsibility of RCAC, but I think promoting.
Sustainability,
Yeah.
and so we-
It's kind of loosely related, but not.
But
I
there's
don't know
no
if it's-
transportation in the committee, so.
Yeah.
Was the Transportation and Safety Committee of the board, sustainability-related items, like Lisa mentioned last month and was included in the newsletters, the local bus info and the call and ride, anything that promotes alternative modes and alternative transit, I think has traditionally been promoted by this group, and the call and ride service was a great add this year to have come back, and I'll be glad to share those numbers. Again, it's like a little bit like some of the parks budget numbers. I'm not as familiar with them anymore.
It would be nice to get data relatively frequently so that we don't just hear from RTD or whoever it is, I'm sorry, I don't know who it is, after the fact that, nope, you didn't have enough ridership.
Mhm.
It is to sort of be able to track it and say, oh, ridership is falling, we better
Mhm.
advertise it or something.
Yeah, we've been trying to advertise it, and Brian mentioned the supplemental budget to do some of the promotion and how we're trying to get it out as much as possible to make sure that we stay above that threshold. If we have the numbers, I haven't received them yet, but I'll be glad to.
And alternatively,
pass them
too, if
on.
it's doing really well, it'd be great to highlight that and say, like, everyone else is doing it, you should too, and,
Exactly.
promote that way, so.
Look how convenient this must be.
Yeah. Were there any other final items?
I think we'll be busy.
All right, I'll send this out
Sounds
with
good.
the meeting notes from tonight, and I think that's everything that I had noted for the agenda.
Excellent. Do I officially adjourn us, or how's that work?
You can say see ya.
I'll move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.